Welcome into the Fox 43 podcast room. Pleasure to be joined by a wrestling legend, Central Dauphin head coach Jeff Sweigard. Coach, thanks so much for being here.
My pleasure.
A great run for your boys in the team tournament, third place finish, and that's bouncing back after some adversity after dropping one in Nazareth. How proud were you guys?
We're extremely proud. We had visions of getting to that state tournament, but did we have visions of being in the top three? Not really sure, but once we got there and our kids were wrestling really well, I thought we wrestled really well in the district finals. Mm-hmm. The way our capabilities, and then when we got to states, and I'm thinking we have a shot at this. You know what I mean? And then we looked at the matchups with Nazareth, and we kind of figured if we really wrestled good, we had an outside shot at them. And I thought we wrestled pretty well against them. And then the big match is always bouncing back after a loss, especially when you're dealing with high schools mentality. They're down on themselves a little bit. They really don't get that. And we had a really good talk after that match, and I look in their eyes. I'm thinking, I think we got a shot at this, and we'll take one match at a time. My assistant Brent Zeiders does a great job with our matchups, and him and I sit down, and it's pretty key when you have tight matches in the matchups, and it worked out for us. And kids wrestle really well against Canamac.
There's a bunch of stuff that I want to pick your brain on, and I'm a wrestling fan. Everybody knows that I have tickets to Penn State, and even though I'm a basketball guy, I'm a wrestling fan, and I love watching your squad, and I love watching you coach. You're so animated on the sidelines. How do the matchups work, like in high school? Because there's so many tournaments, whether it's King of the Mountain. I know off camera we talked about Coal Cracker. A lot of these guys are seeing these guys at some point, I assume, in their career. So how do you guys go about deciding who's going to match up where?
What we do is when you have 13 weights. So we look at the weights, where can we get the most wins at? And obviously you want to get 7 wins. You know what I mean? And you try to get 30 points. That's the key. It's what we always look at. Can we score 30 and hold them under 30? Because when you get in tough matches, that's where you want to be, in that 30-point range. And what we do is look at where can we get 7 or 8 wins and then hold them to bonus points. And as you notice, we're a little weaker up top. I mean, just a little more experience. So what we try to do is we try to work our middle between Gavin Reynolds and Matt Repos, and we try to work that middle where we can get maybe 4 wins instead of 3 wins. And we don't like wasting people like Ryan and Matt on a first-year kid, which a lot of teams do. We like to put them on maybe their tougher kids and try to beat their tougher kids. So the matchups are huge. And the coin toss. People don't realize how important that coin toss is in a real tight match.
So your staff, when you're deciding those matchups, when you guys go to those tournaments, I'm assuming there's a list of notes that come out of every single tournament and what kids are doing and histories about going through everybody.
We research it, it was tough this weekend because we had 3 matches in a row and we didn't really know who we were going. Mm-hmm. So we would have whoever's wrestling, we'd have a scouting report on them and a scouting report on their opponent, and then once we find out who wins, then we go to work.
Gotcha.
Like in between, right before Canamac, we had a chance to go have an hour. I think there was a double A or something in between. So we go away from the kids, away from the parents, and Brent and I just sit down and kind of look at the matchups and decide: do we want odd or even on the coin toss? Do we want to bump this guy here, move this guy over? So that's why it's imperative to have backups that you can put in there, and sometimes they have to sacrifice for the team, you know what I mean, and try to save us bonus points. So that's huge in high school wrestling.
When it comes down to the coin toss and the choice on that, how often does the starting weight dictate what you want to do?
Oh, it's huge. When they pick a starting weight, that's always would be odd. Because there's 13 weights, that would be 1. The second weight would be 2. The third weight would be 3. So then you decide whether you want odd or even on what weight you want to control. We want to control, let's say, 160. We want them to put out first at 160, then we can make a decision on, do we want our kid out there, or do we want to bump around that kid? So you always want to win that coin toss so you can control the weight that you think is imperative for you to win the matchups.
So one of the guys that you always want to control is wherever Matt Repos is at.
Well, that's huge.
He's one of your studs.
Yes,
in the lineup.
And Matt and Ryan, conveniently this year, were at every other weight. So it worked out pretty good because Matt was at 42 and Ryan was at 60. So you figure they're every other weight. They're either going to be both odd or both even. Mm-hmm. So it kind of worked out. We also wanted to control 89-215 because, we had a first-year heavyweight there, so we would try to get Eli Poyer and Luke Nye on 2 of the weaker ones. So we could maybe pull 2 out of 3 weights there, as opposed to, losing 2 out of 3.
Let me ask you about this. You've been around wrestling for a long time. How many years coaching?
This is my 40th year.
40th year coaching. Okay.
I did 1 year as a junior high coach at Susquehanna Township, 10 as a high school coach, and then 29 at CD.
Gotcha. And a birdie told me at the Giant Center that you were state finalist.
I lost in the state finals in 1977 up at Rec Hall.
And you remember that like it was yesterday, am I right?
Yes. The kid that beat me was CD Mock. It's kind of ironic because during the Channel 33, I think used to do it, but during the match, I had CD on my uniform, and they referred to me as, they were like, why does that guy have his name on his uniform? Well, the guy's name was CD Mock from Council Rock. He ended up being North Carolina University's first national champ in 81.
Yeah, and by the way, that little birdie that told me that, it was actually a conversation between Mike Craig, the AD at Cumberland Valley, and Chris Hunter, your athletic director. We were sitting next to each other in Media Row, and we were talking about that. So
it was 1977. I remember Rec Hall very well.
Great atmosphere to be in.
Oh, it was awesome.
Compare that to the Giant Center now for the guys.
Yeah.
How's that compared for the Giant Center right now with the guys?
Back then in 1970, I didn't even know where Penn State was, and then they're telling me we're traveling to Penn State to wrestle in Rec Hall. I got up there, I was shell shocked, kind of like the first year freshman in the Giant Center. You know what I mean? But I wrestled pretty well, and I wasn't ranked or anything. I just had a great tournament, and here I am in a freaking state finals, wrestling the number 1 kid in the state. I mean, the kids say, "Hey, do you think you could beat him if you have another chance?" I always tell the kids you probably win probably 11 out of 10 matches we wrestled. He was just a better wrestler.
Yeah,
he was pretty good.
So we're coming up to individuals, and this goes for teams as well. I mean, sometimes you're going to run into a buzzsaw. Mac Church at Waynesburg Central. I know you guys wrestled them a couple times. Is one. Matt is one of those guys that on the other end, kids are gonna be like, I gotta wrestle Matt Repost. So when you're sending a kid out, sometimes he's the underdog. So how do you get that chip on the shoulder to be out? Like, it's probably a loss, but go out there, either only give up 3 or maybe shock everybody and grab us 3. And at the same time, when you have one of your ace in the holes like Matt, say, Matt, we really need 6. So how do you judge that mentality aspect of the guys going out there as an underdog?
Before each match, we tell the kids where, with all the internet and all the available information, these kids aren't, they know how to find out who they're wrestling and their credentials. And so we don't hide it from them. We know if we're outgunned, hey, your goal from a team standpoint is to keep it close. Let's hope they make a mistake. And because when you're wrestling somebody that's a better quality than you, we always try to keep it close, frustrate them, and let them make a mistake. And have we told kids, you need to stay off your back? Yeah, we've told kids you need to stay off your back, and that's the role, It's just like a lineman. You got to keep this guy from getting to the quarterback. Your role here is to stay off your back. And we usually don't say that. We just say try to keep it close. If you have a chance to win it, don't hesitate to risk it a little bit.
The match against Nazareth, those are 2 really good programs. You and Nazareth going at it. Nazareth ended up as a state runner-up. It was really fun to watch in the corner. I love watching you. I said, you're always animated and things like that. After a match like that, you're one bout away from flipping it and a couple bonus points. Yep. Giving up a tech instead of a fall, things like that could change a match. When you have the guys in the back and you're telling them like, hey, we got to come back. What do you see in their eyes that tells you as a coach and somebody's been around it, if they're going to be able to respond?
I tell my assistant coaches, they always say, what do you think, coach? So I can look in kids' eyes and see if this is it or if they're ready to come back. And I saw that after our Nazareth match. I looked in the kids' eyes, and when you're talking to them in that little group and you can see kids nodding their heads, you're like, okay. Or I always tell my kids to look at me when I'm talking to them so I can, I like to read their faces and their eyes. And that tells me a lot, after a defeat like that, your wins out of your sail a little bit, and I could see in them that they're like, we're ready to go again. Let's do this. And that's a feeling I got and after each match. And so it was pretty cool,
For the younger guys that are on the big stage for the first time like that, or maybe somebody who didn't wrestle like they felt they should have in a match, is it is there something like looking at one of the guys, the older guys that, for leadership in that to get the guys to bounce back?
I always tell the young kids, I said, look at, I used to do this as a young coach. I said, I always would watch people like the Easton coach and the successful coaches from out west. And I always used to watch when I'm at the Giant Center, where I'm at, and what are they doing? How are their kids warming up? What are they doing before a match? How are they handling themselves? And I always said, you want to be a winner, watch a winner. And I tell my young kids, watch Matt Repos warm up. Watch how he prepares before a match. 1 minute before it, a half hour before it. When we go to the Giant Center, watch how Becca warms up. Watch how they prepare for a match, and if it's working for them, maybe you or we might want to do the same thing. And I did that as a coach. I mean, my first year, I think we were 5-10, 5-12 at CD, and I'm like, man, we got to do a little better job. I'm like, well, let me follow some of these programs that are being successful. And the old assistant at Easton was one of the guys, or the old head coach at Easton was one of the guys I followed, which was Coach Powell. And he's still now back as an assistant. And I told him this, and we ended up beating him at States like 52-6 one year. And he said, Coach, that's the worst beating Easton's ever had. And I'm like, well, Coach, I've been following you. He goes, yeah, I kind of saw you. I'd go to the coach's clinics that he was at or he was talking at, and I would just, you want to be rich, go follow a rich guy and see what he's doing to get rich. You know what I mean?
So who are some of those other programs? I mean, the Lehigh Valley's very, very proud wrestling tradition down there with Northampton, Nazareth.
All the teams in the Lehigh Valley, Easton, Nazareth. Becca wasn't as good back in the day when I was starting. And there was a team from North Schuylkill.
Cesar.
I don't know if you know, but I was at Susquehanna.
They're all NC State fans.
Yes, and when I was at Susquehanna Township, we were double A for 5 years and triple A for 5 years. So I got to see a little bit of the double A programs in North Schuylkill, Pine Grove. Those kind of coaches were very successful. And I'm not sure if anybody knows it, but Coach Cesari never wrestled. So it's kind of interesting to see his success at that level. And why is he successful? Now let's find out what they're doing at North Schuylkill. So that's the kind of stuff I did. I'm not a fan of losing, and if I'm losing, I want to find out why we're losing. I'm going to see why are they winning. And I tell my kids that. Watch how other kids prepare for a match. Mentally, physically, are they relaxed? Are they loose? Are they sitting up there, nervous a little bit about it? Do what they do.
Joe Cesari was actually my middle school principal for 1 year
was
in
he
high
really?
school. Yeah, it's funny.
Was it at North Schuylkill?
No, he was at Monte area. It was at Monte
I
area.
didn't know that.
Yep, he was at Monte area for 1 year and was my middle school principal.
We used to wrestle as kids when I was at Susquehanna Township. The Rolls boys, Jesse, James, and Jason. I coached at Susquehanna, so we used to see those guys at when we wrestled in the old barn, the arena at Hershey.
Yeah, no, great stuff. The state of wrestling right now, it's just different because you have all these like national tournaments. So for you as a coach and like guys going out to like Fargo and then, Beasts of the East down in Delaware, Beasts of the East is still in Delaware, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
University.
Yep. So what's that like? Because I feel like even 20 years ago, the traveling just wasn't as extensive as it is today. Is it good for the athletes? Do they get worn down? How do you balance that?
I got mixed emotions about it. I mean, I'm still a fan of multi-sport athlete. My son wrestled, played baseball and football. And I know he came to me and said, Dad, should I focus on one sport? He was probably like a 7 or 8 on all 3 sports, pretty darn good, a starter, but he wasn't that top athlete at those sports. And I said, my feeling is if you like football, continue playing football. Of course, his dad's a wrestling coach. And he was a starting linebacker there. And, he was on all those state championship teams, but he wasn't the kingpin of those. And he put a lot of time into football. And then in spring, he would play Legion baseball. But so my feeling is I got mixed feelings about how far it's come. Is it good for everybody? I still wish some kids would play multiple sports, but you want to stay up with the Joneses. If Becca's working out 3 times a week in the off season, CD needs to stay up with them. You know what I mean? Do I always want to do that? Not really, but do I think it's necessary to do it? Yes. Do I enjoy it? Yes, but I think sports have become so specified, and I always tell people after 40 years, I think the kids back in the day were tougher from a mental and physical standpoint because they played multiple sports and you didn't have the injuries that you have because I think the repetition of the same sport creates more injuries. But I think the kids now are talented more, but they have access to more clubs, more gyms. Back in the day, we would lift in our basement with our buddies. I'm sure nowadays there's a gym every mile that you can go to, and there's a private instructor, whether it's a wrestling coach or a strength coach or a agilities coach. So these kids have more opportunities to get better. And I think what they're seeing is now these people like Spooky Nook, they're running tournaments every 2 weeks, calling them national tournaments, and obviously it's a money making thing for them as well. And our kids feel the need to go to those. I mean, we take a team to Florida every year, and we kind of do it as to get different competition, and we try to do it as a team bonding thing. We'll go to a water park for a day, and we try to eat together, and they mess around and in the pool and stuff. So that's kind of cool. But if you don't do that stuff, you're going to be average. And do I agree with all of it? I don't know. I mean, I enjoy every bit of it, but sometimes I feel like I have to pressure the kids. A trip to Florida is $800, and we do a lot of fundraisers to help them out and stuff like that. But it's good and it's and bad. There's both sides to it. I'm sure other coaches feel the same way.
Do you have to coach the kids different from when you first started?
You really have to watch for the burnout thing. You really got to have to watch over coaching. For instance, yesterday we did a light workout. We just drilled. I went over some technique. Probably 20 years ago, I would have put them through the grind. I've learned that you can't go 5 days a week, hard live wrestling. Yesterday we did no live wrestling. Today we'll pick it up a little bit today. And as the season goes in, I shorten the practices up. Beginning of the year, they're 2.5 hours, including a lift, a run, and technique. Now we're backing down about an hour and a half.
Do you have to tell the parents? Because I know wrestling parents, from youth tournaments, they're all energized. And there's different types of parents. There's ones that, will just sit there, be quiet, then go home and be like, hey, do you know what happened in this? And
they're our favorite ones.
Yeah. But you have to tell them, like, hey, tone it down. Like, don't be as involved. After this week, it's been a rough week.
Right.
Things like that.
You got, the parents get it. I have a good relationship with our parents. I'm not really buddy with them, but they respect me. I respect them, and they know let me do the coaching. You do the parenting. I had to tell a few of them people that, it's not like baseball where every parent thinks they know everything about baseball because they coach Little League.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a little different aspect here, but no, I've had great parents and have I had a few talks with a few of them. Yeah. I had a talk with a couple parents, about them being overbearing with their kid and things like that. But for the most part, it's been good. I love the support of the parents. CD's we've always had great support from our parents, and we have a good booster club, so it's all good. What's
the best part about being involved in the sport for how long you've been doing it?
I tell people my favorite part is 3 to 5. I like going to practice. In 40 years, I've never missed a practice, which is pretty much insane, especially through some of the health issues that I've dealt with over the last 15 years. But I enjoy going to practice. I like taking that first year kid and watch him hit a move in practice just as much as I like seeing a kid win a district title. I still enjoy that. I still like working with kids. We had a couple seniors that I probably should have got rid of this year because their first year, but I saw they really wanted to be there, so we kept them, and they were real happy on senior night that we kept them. They were around. It was a great experience for them. So as you get older, you see, not that I haven't seen it before, but you see other reasons for these kids coming out, especially going through that COVID. There's 2 or 3 years of COVID where the numbers were down, and I had 44 kids out this year. I never had that many in my 40 years of coaching. So it was, and several people said, man, we need to cut because we don't have a very big wrestling room. And I'm like, I can't do it. If these kids are willing to sacrifice their time and effort to be there from 3 to 5 to go through what a high school wrestler goes through from 3 to 5, they need to be here.
You mentioned that. There's only one other sport that I feel kind of relates to high school wrestling, and that's a walk-on at a major Division I football program. To me, that's the only comparison, because a walk-on at Penn State or Alabama, they're probably not going to play,
Right.
and they're getting lit up on a daily basis. There's guys in the wrestling rooms that at every level, high school, going up to Penn State wrestling, that I don't want to say tackling dummies, but they're workout buddies,
Right.
and they're eating Resolite and they're staring at the lights a lot. How important are those guys to the program and everything that they go through, because they're going through the same workouts? They're sweating. They're doing the wall sits. How important are they to the program?
Oh, they're huge. I mean, those backups are huge. You need people to drill with. You need people that you can, like, I'll put a varsity kid out there and then feed kids on them every takedown or something like that. You need those kids. And after about the third or fourth minute, those kids are taking the Matt Repos is down, the Brian Garvick's down, and now they're getting a little excited, and we just keep feeding them. So you need those guys. I mean, I feel bad that some of them aren't getting time on the mat, but I try to emphasize in the wrestling room the importance of those kids in our room, and I think that's what keeps them around. I've had several kids come to me and say, "Coach, this is it for me." I'm like, "Well, why is that?" He goes, "It's very hard for me to come and put 10 to 12 hours of hard workouts in to not even know if I'm going to get a JV match," because that's how the sport is nowadays.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we will have a JV basketball game. We will have a JV soccer game. We will have a JV football game. But will there be JV wrestling? And that's one of my things I would like to change a little bit, you know what I mean? And I have some philosophies on it, and I've already talked to some people and they didn't bite on it. But I think we need to improve our junior varsity programs and give them more attention. That's why I run a JV tournament every year. We don't make much money on it. It's a lot of work, but I think those kids need more mat time.
Talking about where the sport's going, girls wrestling. It's going to be sanctioned probably in under 3 years in Pennsylvania as the lineups start getting filled out and more schools start sponsoring it. Your thoughts on the growth of that? And it's kind of booming.
Well, I got mixed emotions on it, and people are always surprised. Like, people are saying, "Hey, Swags, you guys got one of the best programs in the district. Obviously, you're consistent in the state every year. Why don't you have a girls program?" Here's my reasoning. So this year I put on the announcements. We're going to have a try-it practice. I'm going to run 8 practices without the boys, excuse me, and you're going to come out and try it. So I did it on Wednesday nights or whatever. So I had like 4 or 5 girls come out. And then I think the most I ever had was 12. And it was pretty inconsistent. And I had about 4 or 5 girls that came to every one. And then I asked them why you want to wrestle. So then I kind of got, what they want to be here for, And we just didn't have the consistency of the girls coming out. I'm not going to, this is my personal opinion, I'm not going to start a program unless I see that interest. I don't want to be that program that has 3 kids on their team and then we go wrestle somebody and you forfeit 9 matches. I'm not doing that. I think it should go to a club sport first at CD till you show that interest, and we'd start to develop that interest, and then boom, make it sanctioned. Because I don't know, of these 99 teams that are sanctioned, what are their average numbers in their program? Are they 3 or 4? I asked one coach, he said, "We don't have anybody. We don't have any girls come out, but we want to sanction it and then build from there." Well, I think that waters down the sport itself.
And it's like the chicken or the egg. Talking to some of the ADs and coaches when I'm walking around the Giant Center, they say, "Well, we only have 3 or 4, and we're hoping by saying we have the varsity team that more and more girls come out."
See, I look at it the other way. I look at it, let's run a club sport, let's run a club team, run a bunch of tournaments, and create that interest, and then sanction it. Because, do the schools have the facilities to use the gym 3 or 4 nights a week now that you have girls wrestling? And they don't play the girls soccer game beside the boys soccer game. So I go over to Scout Cumberland Valley before districts and I go watch Spring Grove and Cumberland Valley. It's a big match. Well, they have the boys mat here and the girls mat beside them. I wasn't a fan of that personally because neither one are getting that individual attention.
Neither one is the star of the show. It's almost like you're splitting it off.
And is that how we're going to do this over the next 10 years with wrestling? Are we going to split that?
Girls basketball isn't playing in the gym next to boys basketball. They
my
each
point.
have their own individual
yes,
nights.
and as that's what's going to happen, that makes me nervous. You know, we're going to take away from the boys programs that's been established since 1959 at CD, and split that time with the girls program.
And at the same time, you're taking away from the girls because
Exactly.
they're not having their
Right.
their due as well as their own night.
So what do high school ADs do when it's time for have a full 20 match schedule for girls? Who's going to be able to? And obviously, you know, we have 2 gyms, which helps us. But some of that small school that has 1 gym, are they going to use the gym for 3 or 4 nights a week? And now the basketball team can't practice, or you know, it's going to be a logistics thing too when they sanction this to get gym time. If you think about it, we have 1 small wrestling room, which is like 50 by 40. What are we going to do as far as training? You know what I mean? I don't want to shortchange either team for the sake of having a team.
Gotcha.
You know, I don't want to shortchange the girls. I don't want to shortchange the guys. And, you know, are they going to build bigger facilities? Are they going to have 2 mat rooms?
Yeah.
So
Could
that kind of worries.
Yeah.
I'm
So
worried about that a little
the
bit.
logistics are worrisome, absolutely.
For me.
In terms of numbers, just having more participation in wrestling with the girls, I'm assuming you're on board with all
Oh, yeah.
all of that, because numbers is numbers, and getting the growth of the sport and interest is tremendous.
Well, I got a call from somebody last year that's kind of oversees the girls, this whole girls thing in Pennsylvania, and asked, hey, would you guys be interested in running the state tournament? And I said, what's it involve? And he said, obviously our boosters are going to make some money off of it. It was a lot of work. And I said, when do you want to do it? Well, Sunday after the boys' states. And we want it close to the Giant Center. And you guys are close. You have a good boosters. So I looked into it, and we ended up running it. It was successful. It was a lot of work.
We were there.
Yeah, it was a lot of work. I don't know if you're aware of this, but, you know, we had 2 kids in the state finals. We go over to the local restaurant to just celebrate a little bit, have dinner. And then at 10:30, 11 o'clock, I go over to school and start setting up mats. I didn't go to bed till 8 o'clock the next night.
Wow.
After we broke it down. But it was well worth it. Once we had to do all the manual labor, and then this group came in and ran the tournament. Ran the tournament. They did a great job. And we made good money off of it. It was great for our boosters. We ended up taking our team to Florida with it. So it was kind of, you know, twofold for us. I mean, it was a lot of work, but we ended up making money on it. And we're going to do it again this year because they didn't hit their. And Bob Lombardi was there. You were there.
Yep.
It was a great. I mean, I saw some great wrestling. It was enjoyable to wrestle. We didn't have CD didn't have a girl in it, but you saw programs that I walked around up top on the second floor. I saw head coach of Canada Mac there with 12 girls. I saw the head coach of North Allegheny there with 12 girls. So they just made it a weekend and brought their girls with them. And then I'm walking around the Giant Center concourse, and I saw teams, girls, like 10, 12 girls walking around with their, you know, their school mascot T-shirt on. I'm like, oh, they're here for tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. But they didn't have a qualifier last year. This year they're having qualifiers, which I think is good.
Yeah.
Because I called him, he called me up and said, could you put 2 more mats down? I'm like, okay, I got to pull them in here. I said, I thought you were having a qualifier. He goes, no, we decided not to because we wanted to bring more people in, more girls in, instead of limit it from a qualifier. So this year they are having a qualifier.
Gotcha. How exciting is the postseason time of the year? Because postseason wrestling is different. I know, like, the openings get, you know, there's a lot of hype around them and then around Christmas because you have those tournaments you're going to and everything. But there's something special about Pennsylvania postseason wrestling. Yeah, it's a grind, and it's awesome.
It's fun because now I take the pressure off me a little bit because I'm not worrying about this dual lineup thing. You know, putting lineups together, bumping kids around, and you know the other thing is, you know, with the state duels, you got to worry about like your weigh-ins. You know, I have a kid dropping weight, and he's now on his descent plan, but he has to wrestle up a weight or 2, even though he's on his descent plan. Mm-hmm. And so that makes it a little tough from a coach's standpoint. I don't want to screw that up. Okay, you can wrestle, you have to be half a pound over, but you got to be within your descent so we can bump you up a weight or 2. So that makes it tough. So going into the postseason individually, we don't have any of that problems. I just focus on individual kids, individual weaknesses, individual strengths, and then we just focus from here on out. And Your kid doesn't want to work very hard. It's all about him now. You know what I mean? And I usually don't have that problem, but I always remind them when they get a little lazy, hey, this is for you, buddy. You know, because it was all team the last, 2 weeks or more, you know what I mean? The last with districts and state duels, now it's individual. So that kind of is fun from a coach's standpoint.
Yeah, I always see a lot of heart and passion
Yes.
from your guys when they're at the Giants Center.
Yeah, we get a little excited, yes.
Yeah. How great is Pennsylvania? I mean, for me saying Pennsylvania, and maybe it's because I'm a Pennsylvania kid that, I just always think the world of Pennsylvania wrestling and the programs in the state. And, go back to, I think it was Dan Gable who said, you either have the boys from Pennsylvania to win a national championship, or you got to go through the boys from Pennsylvania to win a national championship. So I still hold that quote, to be true. So I tell everybody about it. So how great is the state?
I love that quote. But, I travel. We go down to Virginia Beach to a national tournament. We travel to Florida for a national tournament. We have a club team I take down to Virginia Beach called Team Diesel, which encompasses, we try to improve District 3 when we started this program. Mm-hmm. And we've had Eddie Ruth on it, Zane Rutherford on it, District 3, and like the surrounding districts where we come together and train together and then go down and wrestle and represent Central Pennsylvania. That's what we were called, basically. And I've traveled down there, and you travel to Florida, and you see that look when they see a team from Pennsylvania. And Pennsylvania is known for their mat wrestling. You know what I mean? You go to these other states, you're taking you down, cutting you loose. And when we go to these other wrestle teams from out of state, most of the time we beat them on the mat, top position, tilting and stuff like that. They don't know how to handle that. And so I told my kids the other day, I said, their end of the year speech, I said, you know what? You guys were third in the state, but you're third in the state in one of the best wrestling states in the country. So that that adds to that accomplishment as far as I see it.
Coach, I hope you had fun because I had fun talking to you.
Oh, yeah, it was great.